through. Why would I do this again? Go talk to the man in the fourth row. Well, thankfully he won. And I took a very deep breath, was started to perspire a little bit, walked down to the man, and I brought a chair with me. I literally turned and took an empty chair and walked it down the aisle and sat it next to this poor man, Owen, sat down, turned to him, blood went out of his face, and he looked at me and I looked at him. I said, Owen, please don't be offended, but you didn't tell me the truth. What's bothering you? And you could see it in his face. He said, how did you know? How could you know? I said, Owen, I don't know, but heaven knows. What's going on? He said, I told my wife, we're quitting the ministry after the session tonight. I said, oh, maybe that's why God has me sitting right here. Why are you quitting the ministry? He said, listen, before I started in ministry, I had a major job. I was making all kinds of money, and then God called me into ministry for men, and they don't pay much in ministry for men, and we lost all of our life saving. I remortgaged the house. We went through it. We lost every penny in our retirement account. We maxed all of our credit cards, and now we're $16,000 in debt, and I can't do one more day. I'm quitting. There wasn't a man in the room who couldn't identify with that. I could identify with that. And I said to him, Owen, nobody's going to ever judge you for stopping under these circumstances. But let me ask you just one question. I said, did God clearly, and I guess you could say supernaturally, call you into the ministry? I mean, that you and your wife knew God Himself was asking you to do this? Yeah, there's no doubt about that. That's why we left everything. So okay, here's the question. Is He supernaturally asking you to leave? I mean, has He said to you, Owen, thank you, you finished the job for me, now you're free to go back to the other job you want? No, He's not said that. He's not. Then the only decision you have to make is, do you want to leave if He hasn't asked you to leave? Well, how can I not leave? I'm $16,000 in debt. I said, Owen, I don't know. What do you want to do? It's real quiet. Got teary-eyed. Now, men don't get teary-eyed too often, especially in front of a room full of other guys, but he did. And he wasn't the only guy in the room that was struggling with this. And he said, you know, He hadn't asked me to go. I shouldn't go. I'm not going to quit. He hadn't asked me to quit. I said, oh, and are you sure you want to make that decision? Yeah. I said, will you shake on it? You know, men make their mind up with a handshake. And he said, oh, Bruce, that would be terrific. So he shook, and I turned to the other guys and I said, you know, why don't you kind of gather around him and just give him some support. I said, oh, and who else needs to know about this? And he said, God needs to know about this. I said, can you tell him? He said, yes. I'll never forget this. He stood right up. Other guys all around him, some of their hands on his shoulder just by a way of a manly support. And Owen prayed, oh man, dear God, I'm sorry for quitting. You didn't ask me to quit. I hereby commit to you, I'm not quitting unless you ask me to leave. There was cheers and everybody sit down, and I'm wondering, what on earth am I supposed to do now? And I turned around kind of sheepishly, looked back up the aisle for the guy, wondering what he's going to do with his ear. And he didn't touch his ear, he stood up. And he said, oh, that's not right. That's not right, he's $16,000 in debt. That shouldn't be. My wife and I will give $1,000 to that right now. What about the rest of you guys? And then he turned to me and he said, and you're the speaker? What about you giving some money? And I was praying frantically. This is going to be one expensive meeting. And I said, Okay, that would be fine with me. And do you know, in the next 2 minutes, that man got exactly $16,000 from 80 men who don't make very much money. And there were miracles everywhere going on in this little event. And I walked back down the aisle to Owen. I said, Owen, do you recognize what happened? It was only when you passed the test that God was giving that He then opened heaven and gave you all this money, and just like that.